Los Angeles, a city known for high prices and low culture. That's why today I'm going to be taking you to 12 museums across the city that are completely free to visit, to see some world-class pieces of art without busting our coin purse. I'm going to teach you how to do it and tell you which ones are worth the cost of admission.
We're starting the tour in the Bunker Hill neighborhood in downtown LA at the MOCA LA. Right down these stairs off of Grand Avenue, you'll find the entrance and also this small lemonade restaurant. The first exhibit that I'll see today is Ordinary People Photorealism. Now you might think this is a photo, but actually, it's just a photoreal painting. Look at the brush strokes. Those look like a pair of boots, ceramic. Is this a man? No, it's just a very, very realistic statue. Next up is the MOCA Focus, Ana Segovia, with these beautiful, vibrant paintings. And finally, Climate Change, Josh Klein, which is a little, well, we'll get to that. Look at these wax houses on a hot plate that are melting in real time. This room is full of giant dioramas, each with a video interview with the survivor of a fictional climate catastrophe. And you know I'm gonna check out the gift shop. So these are the 3 exhibits that I saw. There is another paid one. That one costs $18 to see and is in the other MOCA building that's in Chinatown, about a 20-minute walk away. It has a lot of lights and stuff. It looks very cool, but it wasn't free, so I didn't go. But that still leaves a lot of free stuff to say. I'd say this museum is like 80% free.
I thought it was great. It was cool seeing the pieces of art that were painted on non-traditional medium like foam core and jute. And of course the climate change exhibit, which really touched me, which was sort of experiential. You really had to be there. But aren't we all there in this climate change catastrophe? I think the best thing that I saw today was the climate change exhibit, the melting ice, the melting wax. It really moved me, it scared me, and it touched me real deep. Was it worth the cost of admission? Absolutely. That gets a 5 out of 5. Well, I'm here at the Funicular Railway. That's my train. I better go.
And right across the street, you'll find our next museum, the Broad, which cost me absolutely nothing. Through the lobby and up the escalator, you'll find the main collection, which, holy cow, that's a lot of art.
Just a regular dinner party for your friends who are under 5'9". Let that sink in.
Here are some of the featured exhibitions that I saw, and everything at the Broad right now is entirely free, even the mirror room. Now you can pay for parking there, it's $17 for 3 hours, and even though it's free, you really should reserve your ticket online in advance.
Just escaped the Broad, and I ran across the street here to the Disney Concert Hall to talk about my experience. The Broad, often pronounced the Broad, which I think is incorrect, but there might be something to it because holy cow, is that main collection packed with heavy hitters and crowd pleasers. You got Basquiat, Liechtenstein, Warhol. Like, you do not have to be an art historian to recognize some of that stuff. And so it's fair that the museum itself was also packed with patrons. That was like the busiest museum I've ever been in. I had my reservation for the Infinity Room, and man, that line was crawling.
But you gotta do it. You gotta do it for the selfie.
The thing I wasn't crazy about was the crowds. Now, the museum can't necessarily do anything about that except, I guess, like, limit the tickets. I think part of the reason maybe some museums don't get as crowded is because you do have to pay, so it keeps people away, but it also makes it less accessible, which, like, I don't know how that benefits us as a society. That being said, is the Broad worth the cost of admission? Absolutely. I can't imagine another place where you can see that much notable, famous art in one place for free. That definitely gets a value score. 5 out of 5.
The next museum I saw was the Italian-American Museum of Los Angeles, which, yeah, was free. Up these well-worn stairs, you will find the Permanent Collection, which has displays of cultural artifacts and information about notable Italian-Americans. I really love traditional costumes. There was also a visiting exhibit about Italian-American inventors and creatives. This was on display during my visit, and the museum is entirely free, and no reservations are required.
That was a great little cultural museum. When I walked in, the gentleman working there immediately started telling me about the history of the place. It was built in 1908, and you can definitely see that. He asked me about my European heritage and was able to talk at length about how that connected to the history of Italian Americans. The building is old, the floorboards are old. It was built as a community center for Italian immigrants because it was in a space that was originally constructed for the people that the museum represented. It made me feel really connected to that history. What I loved about it was just being in that space. It felt great. So was it worth the cost of admission? I'd say absolutely. That gets a value score of 5 out of 5.
I was getting hungry, so I grabbed these tostadas from a nearby vendor.
I got these 3 tostadas for $10, homemade. Really very good. I also wanted to take a second to go over the rules of this challenge. I'm only going to museums that are completely free every day that they're open. I know there are a lot of museums in LA, LACMA, the Natural History Museum, that do locals afternoons that are free after 3. Free tickets to a lot of museums through the LA Public Library. Those don't count. I'm only going to completely free museums.
The next of which was La Plaza, right there off of the Plaza. The first thing I saw was this visiting exhibit of Jaime Munoz. Next, I saw LA Starts Here, which covers the impact that Mexican and Mexican Americans have had on LA culture and history. Then I saw Calle Principal, which is a cute little main street with all these different shops that you can pop into. They each have a little interactive thing to do.
I love a little immersive themed area in a museum. I don't know if this is just a latent Disney adult in me trying to break out.
And finally, I saw Tonantzin, a stunning sculpture of this Mesoamerican goddess. Here are the exhibits that I saw, and everything here was entirely free.
La Plaza de Cultura y Artes. Dude, that slapped. That whole collection was so beautiful. The Jaime Munoz collection, which was visiting, was so cool. I loved the mix of iconography between the different eras mixed in with the modern, Toyota imagery. I used to have a 22R, which I loved dearly, so the imagery of that really jumped out at me. The Luis Verdad sculpture I thought was really cool. Oh my God, it almost made me cry. It had the monarch butterflies on it. It got me thinking about climate change and how, we're losing the monarch butterflies. So overall, the museum was fantastic. I couldn't recommend it more. 5 out of 5 from me.
The day I was visiting, the old firehouse was open. This doesn't count as one of the museums. It was just a little freebie nearby. The next actual museum I saw was the Chinese American Museum, which was absolutely free. Started off with journeys covering different periods of Chinese immigration to LA. Then this recreation of a turn-of-the-century general store with all these cool artifacts. Then upstairs to Origins, the birth and rise of Chinese American communities in Los Angeles. Then rounding it out with Unmasking Anime Wong, an exhibit about the silent movie star. There were some of her dresses on display, some movie posters, and even clips being projected on the wall. And I loved it all, and it was all entirely free.
The Chinese American Museum, another great small cultural museum in the Plaza area, kind of like the Italian American Museum, a little bit bigger, also in an old building like the Italian American Museum was. There's information and artifacts from the many decades of Chinese immigration into LA. I like that turn-of-the-century shop that they recreated. It's such a fun and engaging way to display all the artifacts. Overall, it was a great experience. I loved the Chinese American Museum, and I give it a 5 out of 5. Day 2 of my museum adventure has brought me to beautiful Exposition Park, where I'm starting the day here at the Natural History Museum.
Here is the newly opened Commons at the Natural History Museum, which is absolutely free. And we're starting out strong with the frickin' Dinosaur. This very beautiful mural. And that's kind of it for the Commons. The Natural History Museum has an entrance fee to see most of the exhibits. It's $18. They also have 3D movies and stuff that are separate fees, including this dinosaur show, which I'm sure is really cool, but it wasn't running when I went, and it also cost money. So overall, the Natural History Museum is only 5% free.
That is the Commons at the Natural History Museum. Definitely a small little space, but a nice addition to the greater museum. It is very much just a lobby, and I can't really blame it for that. It doesn't call itself a museum, but for the size of the space it was, it had a lot to offer. A very cool mural covering the history of California, and I like that interactive display where you could kind of zoom in on different parts of the mural and learn more. Of course, that giant dinosaur, people love seeing the fossilized dinosaurs. I'd say my favorite part was actually a very small display that showed some of the native plants and the molted skin from a snake, because it was really like a small version of the bigger animal dioramas they have in the museum. But overall, is the Commons at the Natural History Museum worth the price of admission? The few things that you can see there are very cool. And it's here at Expo Park, which has a number of other really cool things you can see for free. So I'd say absolutely 5 out of 5. Rose Garden, they should call this place the Nose Garden, because it's like a museum for the schnoz.
Next, we're making our way to the California Science Center. Right there in the lobby is the gift shop, and boy, this thing is big. You know I had to check it out. Then over to Air and Space. 2 for the price of 1. Next up is Life, with this lovely sperm delire. Then over to Ecosystems, which was huge. It's even got a wave pool. You know we love our coastal kelp forests here. Then over to Fire, which had this model living room, which was right across from the only exhibit that cost extra, the Da Vinci exhibit. So all of these were free. The Da Vinci exhibit was $23, plus they have 3D movies on IMAX, which are $14 for adults, making the California Science Center an impressive 95% free. And you can get to Expo Park pretty easily without a car, but if you want to drive, parking costs $20 normally.
The California Science Center, or the California CN Center, which I guess is technically called, because that's what it says on the front of the building and all the merch. That place was pretty amazing. The vibe in there was great, sort of that Aero Fruitager vibe, sort of like an airport terminal from 2001. The place was a little run down, I'll admit, but as far as the exhibits go, that place was amazing. I was blown away to be able to see things that were like literally in space. That bio exhibit was pretty great. And they have Tess, I believe it's called, which is like the big robot that talks about how the body works. My favorite thing is probably that kelp forest exhibit, the touch tank, which was also free. It definitely feels like a kids' science museum, but even as an adult visiting without kids, I thought it was pretty neat. So is the California CN Center worth the price of admission? Absolutely. There's so much to see there. The exhibits are very impressive. Even as an adult, if you're here at Expo Park, it's definitely worth popping in to see. So I give the California CN Center a 5 out of 5.
Right next door is the California African American Museum. The first exhibit I saw was We Are Not Strangers Here, an exhibit on Black homesteaders in California. Then an exhibit of the work of Simone Lee, who's a multimedia artist. This installation included sculpture, paintings, and video. Then World Without End, the George Washington Carver project, which included art and artifacts by Carver himself and art inspired by his work. Here's some textile work that he made by hand. And here's a letter that he wrote to Henry Ford, using ink he extracted from the bark of an elm tree. Here are the 3 exhibits that were on display when I went, making CAM absolutely free.
The California African American Museum, amazing. My favorite thing about it was that it mixed history, science, and art in a way that you don't always see in museums, but seeing everything side by side, how it all sort of informs each other, really illuminated all of the work in a way that it might not have if everything was just separated. So is the California African American Museum worth the price of admission? Absolutely. A truly beautiful educational moving experience. I loved it, and frankly, I look forward to going back and seeing future exhibits there, especially when you can see this museum along with the 2 others at Expo Park. That is an amazing value. You just can't turn down. Here I am in the quaint Westwood Village for another round of museums, and I'll be starting the day off at the Hammer. I barely know her.
On the corner of Wilshire and Westwood, you'll find the Hammer Museum, and yeah, the admission is free. There's some cool work here in the lobby with this Metal Gear Solid looking ass. Then out into the central courtyard. Very chill, very nice. The first exhibit I saw was Breathe, pieces by various artists on the topic of climate and social justice. Then off to the permanent collection. Now that is some classic art. I found this subject particularly charming. And there he is, the legend, the Hammer. These are the exhibits that I saw, and everything was 100% free.
Love the Hammer Museum. What a great little experience. I love the big courtyard in the middle. It's nice that they have a little sit-down restaurant, and it really felt like just a community gathering place. I thought that was very cool. Now, my least favorite thing about it was frankly the pieces on display. Just didn't resonate with me as much as some of the other pieces that I've seen on this trip. Maybe I'm just in a mood that's not very open to the arts today. Or maybe for whatever reason, the complexities of man, those pieces just didn't really connect with me, and that's fine. I am not an art critic, nor am I an objective observer of art. Just because I didn't love the pieces there as much as I did some of the other pieces that I've seen doesn't necessarily cast a value on the things on display. My favorite piece of art was one of the first things that I saw. This black pedestal that just looked like maybe the stand for a piece of art that wasn't there, but when I went in for a closer look, I saw that there was like movement on top of it. It was a ferrofluid that was being charged by some electronics or magnetics, and it created this wild pattern and movement on top. I thought that was very cool. So with all of that, is the Hammer worth the price of admission? I'd say absolutely. There's so much fun stuff to do in Westwood. It's easy to just kind of pop in and see what they have. And for all those reasons, I give the Hammer Museum a 5 out of 5.
Our next stop today is the Fowler Museum of Cultural History. This also has a sweet little courtyard. The first place I went to is Reflecting Culture. Get it? Reflecting? 'Cause it's silver. And there he is, the man, the myth, the Fowler. Then Sangre de Nopal. Look at these stunning textiles. Intersections is a collection of art from all around the world that shows similar themes and motifs. Then there's Taming the Desert, with these beautiful pieces from Peru. I feel like I know him. This is everything I saw at the Fowler, and this is what I paid for it. Yeah, that's right, nothing.
After a brief but pleasant visit to the Fowler Museum of Cultural History, I have to say I had a really nice time. Tucked away on the beautiful UCLA campus, it was just jam-packed with beautiful pieces of art and cultural artifacts. I think my favorite exhibit was Sangre de Nopal because I thought the art was just beautiful, and I think because it was a little more modern, I understood the meaning behind it a little bit more than some of the more ancient artifacts. I thought it was really just cool the way they were communicating these ideas, and also just the artistry of it. So overall, is the Fowler worth the price of admission? Absolutely. It's so nice to take a little walk through UCLA to get there, and you might think, oh, it's just like a small little museum, but man, it is truly packed with beautiful stuff. It is a treasure. So for that reason, I give the Fowler a 5 out of 5.
Then it was a bit of a journey to my next destination, the Getty Center up in the hills of Brentwood, where I started sitting in a very long security line. Now, I could have waited for the tram, but I decided to hoof it. Just the sun on my face and the 405 at my back. And after a brisk mile walk, we've arrived. The first exhibit I saw was Magnified Wonders, an 18th century microscope. Then off to the permanent collection with some real European art. I mean, look at this fancy lad. And there he is, the absolute legend. And it's not just the art, the views up here are also pretty nice. The whole museum is absolutely palatial. It's just room after room of fancy stuff. I mean, this is probably what the back rooms looked like before they invented fluorescent lights and drywall. I was checking out the view from the balcony and happened to see these tough boys going at it on the hillside. And I want to take a second to say thank you for watching, and if there are any other places in LA you want me to check out, let me know in the comments. If you're having a good time, subscribe. I got plenty of adventures lined up and would love to have you along. And I made it to the west side of the Getty Center just in time to see the final work of art. Here are but a few of the things on display at the Getty Center when I visited, making it 100% free. There are some cafes and gift shops up there if you do want to spend a little bit of money. Now you can get to the Getty Center on a bus. It's not quite as easy as some of the other museums. There's the bus stop on Sepulveda and the museum up on the hill. You do have to walk under the 405 to get to the entrance of the security area and where you hop on the tram. And if you do end up parking, you gotta pay 25 bucks.
The Getty Center was a beautiful place to wrap up the day here. Since this was the last museum of the day, I didn't have as much time as I think it really deserved, because man, this place is huge. In between the temporary exhibits, the permanent collection, just wandering the grounds themselves, there's a lot to see. I didn't like that I went to the photography exhibit only to find that it was closed. I would have preferred to know that beforehand so I could have prioritized my trip. The things I liked about it, well, the location was really fantastic, and the sunset was really a work of art on its own. I also did enjoy the permanent collection. I was surprised because, you know, I'm not a big fan of the sort of old-timey European stuff, but seeing it the way it was presented as like little rooms in some mansion with the dark wallpaper and the fake windows and fake fireplaces, it was really a fun way to see it in that context versus just displayed in little cabinets. So is the Getty Center worth the price of admission? I'd say absolutely. It's beautiful. It's fun to just be up on the hillside, and you get to see some art too for free. You know, that's gonna be a 5 out of 5. What an adventure it's been. I've seen so many beautiful pieces of art. I've been to so many beautiful places. I have felt feelings I never felt before. I thought things I would never think to think before. And I'm so happy I got to share it with all of you. There's only one more museum left on my list, and I'm looking forward to seeing that one tomorrow.
The final museum in this challenge is the Getty Villa, on the cliffs above the beautiful Pacific Palisades.
Could you imagine how Socratic a seminar here would go?
The Chilla has officially made it into the villa. Now that's what I call a courtyard.
If I was a rich person in Herculaneum, I would definitely live in a villa like this. And there it is, the backdrop to 1,000 Tinder photos.
Let me remind you, they're giving admission to this museum
For free. History is just coming alive. It's a much different experience to read about the mosaic, read about how the marble was harvested, than it is to be here and feel the stone and see the detail up close. It's also just a really nice way to experience the LA area. I mean, you can sit by a pool at a hotel and drink expensive cocktails, and also sit by this pool on a beautiful afternoon right over the Pacific Ocean for free. I should call her.
And then there's the artifacts. Man, if you like pottery, it's like a freaking amphoraporium over here. I gotta say, some of it did appeal to me. I liked some of it. Here is one of the temporary exhibits, sculpted portraits from ancient Egypt. And another one, ancient Thrace, treasures from Bulgaria, Romania, and Greece. A lot of busts, but then again, they didn't have Instagram, so I kind of get it. And this is what I saw at the Getty Villa. All of it free, but I did pay 25 bucks for parking. You can technically take a bus there. I just don't think it's super easy.
The Getty Villa. I've definitely been here a number of times, but man, it is always such a pleasure to walk the grounds. I'm not a big ancient Greece guy myself. I don't necessarily have the historical context to appreciate it, but just walking around here, frankly, makes me appreciate the art and artifacts a little bit more. So my favorite thing about the Getty Villa is just sort of being here. You get to feel how the sun sort of naturally warms and the wind naturally cools parts of the building. I really like the herb gardens, all the fruit trees growing around. I know I joke a lot about history coming alive, but it really feels like you're living in history in a small way when you're walking around the Getty Villa. So is the Getty Villa worth the cost of admission? Absolutely. It's a 5 out of 5. There's truly nothing like it. And if you have the opportunity, if you live in LA and you've never made it, or even if you're traveling here, it might be worth spending some time driving up the coast to visit the Getty Villa.
So you've probably heard about the LA wildfires. Obviously, I shot those videos before they happened. You can't go to the Getty Villa right now. The Getty recently released a statement saying that while there were some spot fires on the grounds, there was no significant damage to the Getty Villa itself or any of the artifacts. It is closed indefinitely. I believe the Getty Center recently reopened, but if there's anything to learn from this, it's that if there's something you want to do, you should do your best to make it happen. If you want to see the canals of Venice, you should go before they're underwater. If you want to see the redwoods, you should check them out before they burn down. The unfortunate reality of the world is that it's very, very unpredictable. If there's anything we know for sure, it's that climate change will touch every corner of this world. If you're interested in supporting people who were affected by the Pacific Palisades and Eaton Canyon fires, this is an organization who does really good work. They're getting things to victims of the fires directly and getting them just specifically what they need. And if you're wondering what to do next, I encourage you to work very closely with your most immediate community, your neighbors, your family, your coworkers, because even if you were not affected by this climate catastrophe, you will be affected by the next one. No part of this world will go untouched by climate change, and very few parts of this world will go untouched by American authoritarianism. Not trying to be a doomer about this, I just think we have a responsibility to each other, to our communities, and to society, and we have a lot of work ahead of us, but doesn't mean we can't have a few laughs along the way. Anyway, back to the video.
Wow, I couldn't imagine a better place to end this adventure than right here with the sun setting over the garden at the Getty Villa. I think we learned that art isn't something for rich people to invest in and squirrel away in a vault, but it's something to be shared. And frankly, I feel more stimulated than I have in a very long time. I saw things that made me fearful. I saw things that I thought were beautiful. And I think I learned something about art today, and that it's not necessarily a sculpture or a painting, but art can just be the beauty that we see in the world and in each other. I'm so happy to share this adventure with you, and I hope maybe I've encouraged you to get out there and see a little art yourself. Well, thank you so much for joining me, and I hope to see you again real soon.